I don't remember any red flags in the first book about Tamlin, but I could be wrong unless I reread it.
What about Cassian?
I must have missed it.
Has Rhys ever done anything wrong in his entire life?
Everything I knew was a lie, so yeah. More smut, please. Hi!
Hello everybody! If you are familiar with my channel, you know that I am a massive Sarah J Maas fan, and if you were here 9 whole months ago...
Wow!
Yeah.
This baby was cooking a long time.
You know, in that video we said we'll see you in about a month. It's been 9 months, although Gavin did comment on it and say I'm looking forward to the follow-up in 2024. So we beat that timeline. Woo. But 9 months ago I posted a video on my channel which was Curtis's reaction to and like a discussion on A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas.
Oh, that one.
And now we're back because Curtis has read
the second one.
A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. So like with the last one, I don't really have a structure for this discussion. There are going to be spoilers though, so if you have not read A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury, then it's very possible you will be spoiled in this video, so I would advise that you click away.
Come back when you're ready.
But for the rest of you guys who have been eagerly anticipating this video...
I was going to try and make an eagle sound, but I can't.
Okay, let's get started. I completely lost my train of thought there. So like last time, we will start with your basic thoughts, feelings and rating on A Court of Mist and Fury.
Basic.
Yeah, kind of like non-spoilery, but I've given a spoiler warning so it doesn't matter.
What did I do? I said something about Goodreads, didn't I? After I'd finished it. I said I give it 4, but I wanted to give it 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you explain why you did that?
No.
So I'm guessing you enjoyed this one more than ACOTAR.
Yes.
Why?
It feels like it has more to it.
Extra like 100, 200 pages to start off with.
But even in terms of events, it's a lot more eventful and there's a lot more action, I guess, and there's a lot more things that I could visualize to be more cinematic than the first book. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Hello baby. I've got cat hair stuck to my face now. From A Court of Thorns and Roses, we have a lot of very different things in A Court of Mist and Fury. Back when we did the discussion on A Court of Thorns and Roses, you thought that Rhys was toxic.
Yes.
And you were a big Tamlin fan.
I was led to believe
that Rhys was toxic.
And it's almost like the first book, the author was creating a fantasy world and a fantasy man. You know, like when, say, you're in your relationship and you meet someone and maybe they don't turn out to be exactly what you thought they were in the beginning. Or you are bored of that first person and you leave them and you go find somebody else. That's kind of how I thought, okay, I've written the first book and now I'm writing the second book, and I've totally flipped the books and moved on to a different guy.
How did you feel about the progression from Tamlin to Rhys?
Sudden.
You thought it was sudden?
I didn't think it was smooth, but then is there not a time jump?
There isn't a time jump, but we have the beginning part with Tamlin, and then we have what Tamlin does, where he locks her in the house.
I don't remember any red flags in the first book about Tamlin, but I could be wrong unless I reread it.
There are red flags about Tamlin.
Okay.
There is something that I noticed when I read ACOTAR for the first time, and I kind of just like brushed it off, and we did talk about it in the last video. Red flags for Tamlin for me is where they're in the throne room and Tamlin's on the throne and Feyre's being tortured.
Oh yes, there is that.
And Tamlin doesn't do anything, and it's written off as like, well, he can't do anything because Amarantha's right there, but that doesn't stop Rhys.
That is mentioned in this one.
Yeah, how he just sat and watched it.
Yeah, and when she's like comparing the two or something. But besides that, what are the red flags in the first book?
The first book is very isolated to the Spring Court. The only thing that we have that gives an opportunity for red flags, I think, is where Rhys comes to visit. But aside from that, it's mainly just Tamlin, Lucian and Feyre in the Spring Court. I mean, Tamlin's kind of like surly. We know that he's like has a temper. Because doesn't he destroy quite a few rooms? Maybe. Doesn't he like, does he destroy the dining room in the first book? But mainly his red flags come from possessiveness and jealousy, I would say. Which there is no real opportunity for that in A Court of Thorns and Roses because of how isolated it is until the end of the book. So what do you think about the red flags in A Court of Mist and Fury for Tamlin?
Well, it starts with the red flags, doesn't it? But they're both dealing with PTSD. So is that just how that changes a person? And was Tamlin not that person in the first book and now in this one? Because of everything that they've been through, it's a change.
This is very interesting because there are two kind of opinions on Tamlin. Nobody really loves Tamlin anymore, but there's two kind of arguments. There's some people who want a redemption arc for Tamlin, and there's some people who think that Tamlin deserves absolutely everything that he gets from this point onward. I fall into the camp of wanting a redemption arc for Tamlin because the way I see how things went down with Tamlin and Feyre is that they are both suffering from PTSD, and his manifests in a particularly unhealthy way. Now, we have evidence in A Court of Mist and Fury that yes, he's been a bit of a dick in the past in terms of like his and Rhys's relationship has gone down in the past and the rivalry between them, but I don't think he's an absolutely terrible, unredeemable person. I think they were both suffering from PTSD. His manifested in a very unhealthy way. I absolutely don't think that Feyre should ever have to forgive him, but I don't think that he should be tortured for all of eternity because of it.
No. Yeah.
So it's interesting that you've come to this conclusion of yourself that Tamlin is also suffering from PTSD, because a lot of people just write him off as an abusive piece of shit.
But I'm sure she even knows that herself and says, or maybe tries to justify it with that.
It's difficult when you're reading from Feyre's perspective as well, because she has the kind of duality of being in that relationship, so she is more likely to be forgiving of him because she's seen the other, yeah, like that kind of like when you're in an abusive relationship and you keep justifying it. And it's like, well, it's never happened before, and like, well, he was nice to me once, and all of that kind of stuff. So it is difficult when you're seeing that from Feyre's perspective, but then I feel it's also difficult when you see it from Rhys's perspective, who has hated him for a long time anyway.
It's also jilting the difference, because you're in the wedding and then all of a sudden you're whisked away. And there's no like time, or there isn't any time for Tamlin and Feyre to discuss anything, to either like put any kind of understanding in either person's mind, because it's just all happening so fast.
I think the turning point is definitely when he locks her in the room, but then it's very...
Well, he locks her in the house.
Yeah, the house.
Yeah.
But it's very apparent from her perspective that she's not having a good time to start off with things like the wedding scene, which I love that scene where Rhys just appears.
It's supposed to be everything she ever wanted.
Yeah, there's lots of things on TikTok as well where it's like Panic at the Disco.
Oh yeah.
What's I write sins, not tragedies, and it's the wedding. Oh yeah, because I was showing you TikToks as you were reading the book, because I've been waiting to show you for so long. But yeah, there's some great, I'll put in my description box a link to a bookstagrammer that does a lot of ACOTAR cosplay, and her reels are amazing. So while we're talking about the Spring Court and Tamlin and all of that kind of stuff, how do you feel about Lucian in this book? Because when you read ACOTAR, you said he was one of your favourite characters, and he's got quite a big role in this book.
Does he?
Well, in terms of, he doesn't have a big role in terms of the plot and stuff, but he has the thing like where he's loyal to Tamlin still.
Yeah, there is that moment I think when they're in the forest area and he's there and she sees him, and it's a bit like, oh, there's that guy who I used to know, and he is just like, no, come back with us.
Yeah,
don't bother.
Because when we did the last video as well, I told you that Lucian's loyalty to Tamlin would play a big part carrying on, and it is in instances like this where Lucian knows that Tamlin's done wrong, but Lucian is still loyal to Tamlin.
Yeah.
How do you generally feel about Lucian as a character in this book?
Honestly, don't really remember him being that much part of it.
No. He does turn up at the end as well, though.
Yes.
He's there when all the stuff's going down with the cauldron.
But what is his significance?
His main significance there is that he's still going along with Tamlin's plans against his better judgment, and also he has an interesting reaction to Elaine when Elaine comes out with the cauldron.
But they are part of the reason why this is all happening, but then when stuff starts to happen, they're like, oh no, this is not right.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
How do you feel like Lucian, because Lucian notices something about Elaine when she steps right out of that cauldron? How do you think that may play out in later books?
Obviously it's a big thing.
Especially because he's from Scribd as well and affiliated with Tamlin.
Yeah, forbidden things.
Forbidden things.
Forbidden things.
Something that might get me a bit heated.
Yes.
How do you feel about the inner circle and the night court and all of that kind of stuff, which I feel like is the body of this book and what we're going to have the most to talk about here?
I would say they are probably the most enjoyable part of it. They are a good time.
I know for the longest time when you were reading that book, I kept being like, have you met Cassian yet? Do you like Cassian? And you didn't even know who he was.
No, because I was maybe too much involved in what was happening with the main character and Rhys, and I thought that was my main focus and everybody else was just side to that. part of his posse.
I don't think Amren would necessarely agree with you lumping her
Until
in
you
as part
see
of his
him
posse.
interact with people like her sisters and all that, then you see a bit of character there, I think.
A question that we got asked in the comments quite a lot is who is your favourite member of the inner circle?
So who have you got?
Morrigan, the blonde one. Amren, the one that everyone's scared of.
Oh yeah.
Cassian and Azriel, and then of course Reese.
Who was the one who took her to the house and helped her when she was...
The one who went in and
she
saved
started
her.
painting them on the wall.
Oh.
And like almost gave her like time out, have some time out in this house and paint people.
That was Morrigan.
Guess I like her.
Oh, you like Morrigan. Morrigan's great. She's also the one that saved her from Tamlin's house because Reese couldn't go himself because it would declare war against God.
Yeah.
What about Cassian?
I must have missed it. I must have missed it.
How can you miss Cassian? He's literally, he reminds me of like the embodiment of like a, you know, one of those big dogs, like a Rottweiler that everyone thinks is aggressive, but
Knuckles.
it's actually just really...
Like Knuckles.
Well,
as
yeah,
well,
he
and
is
Sonic
kind
the
of like
Hedgehog.
Knuckles, yeah. He's like a big himbo.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. I love Cassian.
But isn't the future book about him? And has that then made you like him more?
Well, I already really liked Cassian, but the future books, so we have the core trilogy, and then the remaining 3 books are going to be standalones with self-contained stories that follow the members that aren't main characters. So there's Nestor and Cassian. There's going to be one that's got Azriel, Elaine, Lucian. Like the characters that are still unresolved are Azriel, Morrigan, Lucian, and Elaine, so they're going to be like, I don't know who's going to be the focus of each book. I have a feeling she might put Azriel and Morrigan in the same book and like combine some storylines along the way. But yeah, I do like Cassian more because of A Court of Silver Flames, but I think my turning point for Cassian might have been A Court of Wings and Ruin, where like I really started to see him stand out as a character, because now we have the Night Court established, you're going to see a lot more of them in A Court of Wings and Ruin as well.
I imagine there's an audience out there for this book from Tamlin's perspective. Not that much might not happen, but you just kind of wonder
what he was doing all this time.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, to be fair, he was consulting with Highburn for quite a lot of it.
But why? Just to get her back? Revenge?
I think it's interesting. I think that was his driving force, but when it comes to war and a lot of real world situations, it's kind of like whichever perspective you're hearing it from seems right. Like people who are bad people or do bad things can justify their own actions. So I feel like he thought there were more reasonable reasons for allying himself with Highburn, but from our perspective,
we see the ruin that it will do to the human realm.
Because like, as well, from the very first book, we've known that fairies are terrible people. It's been proven wrong.
Can be.
Yeah.
Terrible people.
It's been proven wrong, but something that's consistent about fairies in general is that they don't give a shit about humans.
It is very perspective. It all depends on the perspective is what you see, and that is especially apparent in this one when your perspective is completely shifted, and Reese is a lot more nicer than you thought because he kept that city under wrap. And the stuff you didn't know about Tamlin and the reason why Tamlin and Reese hate each other was totally hidden from the first book. But I feel like that is just like hammered in there to just force you into liking him and justifying everything that she's doing.
Are you going to, because I know we've been talking recently because I've been rereading House of Earth and Blood and like losing my damn mind, and you said that you might read it after ACOTAR. So when it comes to you reading ACOTAR, you're obviously going to read A Court of Wings and Ruin next. But are you going to continue past that and get up to date on this before you move on to something else?
Would it be wise to read them chronologically? So
yeah, but if you read them chronologically, then you're already behind because you haven't read Throne of Glass. I can give you more information because there's this big conspiracy theory at the minute, which I've just posted a video on. If any of you guys have read all of Sarah J Maas's books and want to check it out, I'll link it up here. But about the connections between the 3 series and whether she's gearing up to any sort of crossover and all of that kind of stuff. After I've read House of Sky and Breath, I could probably give you an idea of whether you need to read Throne of Glass right now or whether you don't.
That's probably the best way to do it.
Well, you could read them chronologically, just ACOTAR and House of Earth and Blood, and then if you want to go back, you can go back and read Throne of Glass, which is a bit of a slog, but it has a much wider scope of plot, and it's about the journey, I think, with Throne of Glass. Akatar's tighter. Throne of Glass has like a real great journey and character development in my opinion.
I'm excited to read Crescent City just because of your hype, and I'm also excited to read the fourth, is it the fourth one?
A Court of Silver Flames.
Because of how your negative reaction to that.
I didn't have a negative, like I really love A Court of Silver Flames for the character development in it. I also really identify with the main character in it, but I'm used to having all of this amazing romance and character development alongside a really good fantasy plot, like with A Court of Mist and Fury. And these are more isolated, they're more standalones with the possibility of them all linking together to form a bit of an overarching plot, but it just felt very self-indulgent to me. And I have found out recently that Sarah J Maas used A Court of Silver Flames as her comfort book to write, to get away from House of Earth and Blood. And it's just all feeling a little bit more fan servicey now, but I still think it's great. It's just not at the same it doesn't have the same level of plot that the others do, and I personally prefer both. But the reason why I asked anyway, because I got on a massive tangent, is just because how you're saying it's all a matter of perspective. In A Court of Silver Flames, you're getting a perspective on Rhys and everybody else that you don't get in the core trilogy because you're reading from Feyre's perspective. And it is interesting because there's also an additional chapter that also shows a side of Rhys that isn't the oh my god he's the most amazing person ever perspective. And a lot of people really don't like that. I also don't like that because it hurts to see your favourite characters from the perspective of people who don't like them. So I was just asking if you were continuing, because we do get more of a perspective shift just throughout the series where you see Rhys in another different light.
Yeah, I imagine it goes backwards then from that point.
It's interesting as well because when Sarah J Maas wrote this series, the way she wrote Rhysand was her idea of a perfect man. So Rhysand is literally the perfect man through all of the Sarah J Maas books.
Which is what you thought Tamlin was.
I mean, I don't know, because like I said, I did get that red flag when he was like watching her be tortured on the floor. Like I wrote it off myself as just being like, oh well he can't, and I'm like, yeah, but should he have just sat there?
I guess not.
So aside from the Inner Circle, etc., what do you think just generally about the Night Court as a place and the whole thing with Rhys keeping it a secret and preserving this like amazing city away from Amarantha and everybody else?
It's a big realm, but he can't have the whole realm on his back. It can't really, does it justify anything else that he does wrong?
Does he do anything wrong? Has Rhys ever done anything wrong in his entire life?
The first book.
What does he doesn't do anything wrong. It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Even when he's playing a bad guy, he's never actually a bad guy. And if he is, it's only to his enemies. Like he doesn't like Tamlin, and because of that he doesn't like Lucian because Lucian's affiliated. Also, do we find out more about the Autumn Court in A Court of Mist and Fury?
No, it's the Summer Court, isn't it? Where she goes and flirts with the guy.
Yeah, you do find out a bit more in the series about why the Night Court don't necessarily like the Autumn Court, and it is to do with Morrigan. Further kind of illustrates why they don't really like Lucian either, but mainly it is because he's affiliated with the Spring Court at this minute. And then, because obviously Lucian left the Autumn Court for a reason. I'm guessing from your reactions you're not entirely sold on Rhys?
Yeah.
You are?
I was very sold.
So you don't think he's toxic?
But only because like, just flipped and jammed in there that he's not what you thought he was, and oh wait, Tamlin killed this and Tamlin's dad did this or something, and it's just like, oh okay, everything I knew was a lie. So yeah.
See, the thing that I'm getting from you though is that you don't appreciate that happened and you think it's shit that happened.
You would appreciate that happened if you already liked him in the first one, but you don't like him in the first one because he's bad in the first one.
No, because the thing that she does this a lot, okay, and at the minute we're all just praying that it doesn't happen in Crescent City. That's what's going on.
I see.
But the thing that I really love about her as a writer when it comes to her characters and things like this is that she has the ability to make you fall in love with Tamlin, and then she has the ability to be able to like to get rid of that to the point where you don't care. Because normally if this was a romance and Feyre just broke up with Tamlin and was like, well, I'm gonna go to Rhys now, you'd be really mad because you really love Tamlin, but she does it in such a way that you don't mind that she leaves and goes to Rhys because she's completely changed her opinion.
Yeah. But she hasn't though. It's a very slow, like, almost like when you've been heartbroken and it's very slowly being unpicked over time. And then when she finds out the truth and stuff, it's like, okay, that's the final straw. I know I've made the right decision now.
This is great because I feel like you are very much in the same camp as me, because with a lot of people it's a very black and white, like, but I hate Tamlin now. Also,
now that it's been done to that, you've been flipped. You don't believe anything now from this point on. Like, did everything that Rhys told Feyre, is it true? Or was it just to, you know, get her on his side, to help her do all this stuff? Is what I thought the flip was going to be. You know, when your Goodreads thing said I'm dead, I was like, oh, is she dead because he's been using her all this time?
No, I'm just dead. I'm very emotionally invested.
To get the book and all the stuff that he needed her for.
That's really interesting. That's really, wow.
I was always on the defense.
That has blown my mind. Because the way I went into it, I kind of, I believed that it was going to be Reese forever. I didn't really think that he was using her. My only like leftover thoughts of that is that like I don't hate Tamlin because like we said at the beginning, I still think it has a lot to do with trauma. Doesn't excuse what he did, but I don't think it makes him a terrible person. And I think this is really interesting because there's certain things that happen throughout the rest of the series that I really hate. And I think it comes after the core trilogy actually. It's in the novella and the next, like the newest installment. We have resolutions and characters left in certain ways, and then there's things that keep happening that I just want to stop happening now, like just leave it alone kind of thing. And I feel like you're gonna have similar feelings to me on that, which I didn't think you would, because like I said, the majority is just like, yeah, we hate Tamlin now.
Would like to think that the real sin is not Tamlin, is it? It's, well, to do with Reese. It's not, it's his family that's done it to Reese.
The main conflict
was just kind of along for the ride. He was there when it happened.
The main conflict between Reese and Tamlin does stem from their parents.
Yes.
Their fathers, not them.
So it's that trope of, are you responsible for what your parents did before? Type thing.
And like, how has that affected you as a person?
Carrying
because
the trauma
with Tamlin,
passed on.
Tamlin kind of stood behind his father, whereas Reese went in the complete opposite direction, was like, I'm not going to be anything like you.
Yes.
And I feel like this is two different responses to, I guess, things like trauma, but also upbringing. Like, I personally went the way of like, I'm not going to be anything like you, and went in that direction, where a lot of people will get stuck in that cycle of being like, well, this is what I know, so this is the only way I know how to continue my life forward. No
one's past redemption, are they, when it's like that?
So how do we feel about the fantasy plot in this one? I know in the first book you were into the world and all of that kind of stuff, and we talked about how it's a very self-contained kind of thing. It's very isolated because all of the courts are split up, and like Fair is mainly in Spring, and then it's all very focused on the curse until eventually it gets to Amaranth and Under the Mountain, but you don't really see anything of the world.
You see a lot of the normal human world in the first one. I enjoy the expanding of the world, the magical world, with
it's a very basic plot in the first one.
You have like the different things. You have the thing with the thing that she ended up in the chimney. You have the
I love that
drowning water things where the wraiths save her.
Yep.
That
ties back to the fact that she gave the jewelry to the, what is it? So is it a wraith, a water wraith? Yeah. The karma element of that. And then you've got the summer, and you've got the other places that, you know, Tarquin. It's a world, definitely a world. Which I think is very different from the first book, because in the first book it's just a very simple plot with a very... It's more claustrophobic in the first book. Yeah. Obviously when you're in prison towards the end of it. Yeah, very claustrophobic. Also there's a lot of flying about in this one as well, so you get that feeling of how expansive the world is. They also, did they go to the prison in this one? They go somewhere similar to Under the Mountain, and there's that feeling of, oh no, is it not this again. Did they go to see the bone carver? Yes. Yeah. I think so. And he is that the one where he's like a child? Looks like a child. He looks like a kid. Yeah. That was very... I could imagine that. Speaking of people who look cinematic, yeah, like, because he's real creepy looking, isn't he? Speaking of people who look really young but aren't, how do you feel about Amren and what you know about Amren right now, which as far as I can remember is not a lot? I don't know, you're made to feel safe with Cassian and Reese, but then you've also got that one character, which is like some situations in other fantasy things where, you know, there's some friendly faces, but then there's that one person who's meant to keep you on edge. Yeah. And I think that's what that... You think that's Amren? Yeah. I really like Amren, but she's very like blunt, I want to say, which is why I really like her. She's very much like, don't fuck with me. Yeah. Which I love. So we're going to talk about a little bit to do with the romance, but more to do with a question that I asked you that I said I'm going to keep asking you. Do you think that this book is suitable for teenagers? No. Okay. If you gave an age range of 5 years, so like for an example would be ages 10 to 15, what age range would you say that this book is?
There is only, say, 2 chapters, I would say, that take it out of that. Take them out of it, and yeah, it would be teenage.
I guess that's pretty fair. But those 2 chapters are still in it.
Yeah, so it's not.
So what age range would you say that it's suitable for?
Guess based on other things, 18 plus.
18 plus. It shouldn't be in young adult, which is the argument, like, is it young adult, is it not? Is it suitable to expose teenagers to such graphic sex scenes?
Yeah, it's graphic, but then you've also got the one where it is like a voyeuristic thing where he's on the throne and it's being used to...
The Court of Nightmares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if every teen got that into their head and that was a thing, you wouldn't be able to...
Yeah, because it's kind of dark as well, and I read some pretty dark romance now, but not within YA.
No.
So, how did you feel about the sexual tension and the smut in this one?
And also based on the fact that I liked this throne scene, makes it not appropriate for younger readers.
And you liked it, did you?
Yeah, the what is it? The cottage. The
little hut thing
that they're staying in.
I don't feel like
that's
it's
where it that's funny that's where it happened.
Chapter 55.
Where there is no room.
The great chapter 55. So you approve of the smut, you enjoyed it?
I approve of the smut. I encourage the smut. More smut, please.
Well, there is going to be more smut, and then if you go back to Throne of Glass, you're going to get less smut, but if you carry on in publication order from this point, it just gets smuttier. A Court of Wings and Ruin might be a bit of an exception, but the 2 most recent ones, like House of Earth and Blood, I'm anticipating House of Sky and Breath. House of Sky and Breath has a confirmed threesome.
So it gets worse and worse. So like,
but they're not YA anymore.
Yeah, is that predicting the age of the reader to go higher, or is it just like testing the water, like, we'll do a little bit here, oh that's okay, I'll do more?
Well, I think in terms of publishing, something you have to remember is that it's definitely about making money more than anything else, and also they dictate what age range it goes into. So Sarah J Maas, her books definitely started as YA, because she started with Throne of Glass, and the first 2 at least of those are just like standard YA and themes and stuff. Even the level of romance is not anything super explicit, but as she continued writing, she got more and more explicit, and they continued to put her into young adults, and now it's got to a point, like at this point she can pretty much do whatever she wants and they're going to publish it. She could like embellish the McDonald's menu and they'd be like, let's not call it McDonald's, and then you can publish that. But now A Court of Silver Flames is adult, so they've put that as the, like, anything from that point is adult, and House of Earth and Blood and Sky and Breath are adult as well.
Cool.
With A Court of Silver Flames, it's pretty much more of the same in terms of its YA plotline, but smuttier.
It's great for us, but it's not good for the parents who want to, you know, police their children.
No, because I remember when A Court of Silver Flames, no, A Court of Frost and Starlight came out in 2018, I think, and we went into Waterstones. I was with either you or Ryan, but probably both. And there was just like a group of kids getting excited that it had been released, and I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
Because that one is quite smutty. That one's kind of like a Christmas novella. What did you think about chapter 54, which is the one where Rhys goes through essentially how he's known that they've been mates this entire time? Is she had no idea, because that's the reason that she's mad at him.
Oh yeah. Because
she just dumps him, like he's injured, and she just dumps him on the floor, and she's like, get me out of here.
I don't know why I feel like that was an overreaction, because you feel she's heading that way, so that would just justify her feelings, but instead she hates it.
I think
she hates that she wasn't told.
I think that she's mad about the honest, like, because he's been honest and open with her, but he's kept it from her. But I'm on his side with this. Yeah. With like, well, what did you want me to do? Tell you that we're mates, and you just be like, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. Because he was willing to suffer in silence, and if it never happened, it never happened, because he didn't want to put her in the position his mother was in, where they were mates, so like they were just together forever.
Better to wait and see rather than put that thing in the first place. Yeah,
especially when she comes to him after Tamlin. She's just been in a possessive relationship.
Natural. Yeah, I feel like that just makes us more like him, but also more, okay, this was the right decision. More comfortable, we're in good hands.
I really like it, because my favourite thing, I've just realised as well, because I always say randomly, there you are, I've been looking for you. And you're like, why do you keep saying that?
Oh yeah, that also gives extra meaning to that line.
Yeah, which I was just like, oh my god, he's been looking for her. And then there's the thing of like when she painted on the drawers in her human home, she drew, was it flames for Nesta, flowers for Elaine, and she drew stars for herself, which doesn't make any sense until you get to that, why she'd been dreaming about stars.
Yeah.
Which was, because like chapter 55 is obviously the massive smut chapter. 56 is as well, I think. But I really like chapter 54.
It is good to have some meaning in the early things, because some significance, and if you reread it, it probably gets you.
No, we know what happened to him at the end of A Coat of Thorns and Roses, where he's just like, oh shit, and then disappears. Right at the end. Do you remember?
Yeah.
When she says goodbye to him.
Yeah. Why?
Because that's when he realised.
Oh, that's when he
Because that was the first time that he'd seen her properly after she'd turned fair.
I thought he would have realised earlier.
No, he kind of knew. So when he saw her and he was like, there you are, I've been looking for her, it was more of a curious, like, why have I been dreaming about this random human girl? But when she turned fair, it's when the bond clicked for him.
Okay, yeah.
So that's why he went, oh shit. Well, he didn't say oh shit, but he was like, oh my god, and disappeared.
Yeah.
Question from Family and Books. Do you have any thoughts about what Feyre's dad is up to? Why is he missing from Akama?
Oh, yeah. You totally forget about him until she's telling someone her story, where she came from and how he lost all that money.
Yep.
But yeah, totally forgot about him.
Did you have any theories about where he might be? What he might be doing?
No, I don't. I've only just thought about him.
Might be something
Totally forgot.
to
But that did make me think that it reminded me that I did have a theory about the King of Highburn, that he would be someone we already knew. But I can't remember who I thought it was.
There is generally a lot of that in Sarah J Maas. Like if somebody's mentioned offhand, they do tend to be somebody that we already know, but it's not the case with the King of Highburn. He's just the King of Highburn.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the end and how you think that's going to affect the rest of the series? Well, the next book, because that's the end of this story arc.
It's I liked it. Yes, I said I understand Tamlin's thing of mental illness and stuff. I also felt Feyre's need for revenge, so the fact that she's going in and pretending to be on the other side.
I think this point is Tamlin's definite step too far. Like the first, when he locks her up, product of trauma, could have been a mistake, inexcusable, shouldn't have done it, but he's redeemable as himself.
Could have been undone.
But it's the fact that he keeps going. And he fucks everyone over. I mean, you've got Cassian bleeding out on the floor.
Yeah, wings. Yeah.
Which is a recurring theme for Cassian. You are fine. It is Cassian, isn't it? It's not Asriel.
Cassian, yeah.
Yeah, it's Cassian.
I am not ready for the revenge and the Trojan horse of Feyre.
I asked you a question in the last one. I asked, what do you think of her sisters? And who is your favourite sister? Which I'm now going to ask again, based on the events of this book, where they're a little bit more present.
Well, I guess you don't really have that much to go off.
You have the meetings with the human queens.
I feel like Nesta is the one that's cool, and Elaine is just your damsel in distress.
Yeah, no, it is a very accurate assumption of both of them. I wouldn't necessarily describe Nesta as cool. She is one of my favourites, but she's like more bitter than anything. She's mean.
I feel like she knows more. She's more savvy.
She's more she sees a lot more, and but then we have Elaine, and Elaine, yes, is the damsel in distress, but is she
savvy? I don't know.
I said you were going to like Court of Mist and Fury because of the mental health rep, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's obviously going to be something that really affects Nesta.
It might be as clumsy as Feyre, it might not.
I think Feyre did okay with the transition to being fair. It was the trauma from the actual torture and the events that affected her.
Yeah, which means if you become a magical thing, you still carry the same mental health things.
But I mean, Elaine's lost everything. Elaine was getting married to somebody who hunts fairies.
Oh, so she totally lost her life then, yeah.
Okay. He does hunt fairies,
There is going to be a grief then.
And Nesta's very protective of Elaine,
but
and Nesta doesn't like fairies.
Yeah, so now she's going to hate herself. And potentially hate Feyre, because she's projected them all into this.
I mean, has Nesta ever even liked Feyre?
Probably not.
I love the bit where Nesta goes into the cauldron and she curses everyone on her way down. And she just like has her finger out like this and sort of like pointing at them as she goes in.
But Feyre's bitter, isn't she, about them because, you know, she had to look after them. Or maybe that's against her dad. I don't know.
It's against all of them really, because she's not even the oldest. Feyre's actually Feyre's the youngest?
But she just happened to know how to hunt and
Well, she had to learn because
survive.
nobody else bothered.
Yeah.
But you do get, obviously Nesta has a book now, so you do get a little bit more about Nesta's past when she was a human and her thoughts and all of that and her take on the same stuff that Feyre has an opinion on now. Oh, you called Rhys the brain feeler in last time.
Less brain feeling in this one.
What do you think about Ianthe, who's the priestess, who, oh my god, I hate her.
Yeah.
She's the worst.
She's slimy. She's probably a Littlefinger type character.
Yeah, she's one of the people who irritates me the most. Which one was better? The inn scene or chapter 55?
It's chapter 55, the throne scene.
Chapter 55 is the paint scene. The paint.
Oh, the paint scene.
The paint in the lodge.
But that's less smutty, isn't it? That's more playful.
No, that's like full on.
I don't remember.
And then the bit in the inn is where there's only one bed trope, and
oh no.
they're both like, let's just have some like casual fun, and they're both just like dying inside, but also like having good. Well, Feyre's having good times. Rhys don't get shit. Oh lad.
That's funny. I forgot about the paint scene until you said.
The paint scene's the first sex scene, like the first proper sex scene.
But it's not like a full-on one. Does it not get ended too soon? Or?
No, the paint scene's the one where they're in the hut that she's gone to after, and then Rhys turns up eventually after she's been in the lodge painting eyes on the wall and stuff for a bit, and then they have sex and everywhere and roll around in all the paints.
I see. Yeah, no, forgot about that.
Okay, so do you remember the inn scene? Okay, so the answer to this question is the throne scene, apparently.
Which isn't even a full-on scene.
No, I mean there's even a little bit of something in the inn scene.
I would say maybe the inn scene then, because I remembered it more than the paint scene.
Wow.
I thought the paint scene wasn't, but I don't remember. I'd have to read them.
I'm shocked.
It seems I've mixed them up.
Okay.
I thought the paint scene was before.
No, the paint scene is the sex scene.
I think the paint scene is the better one then.
Not the throne scene where there's just some inner thigh touching.
No, yeah.
You're really into it, inner thigh touching.
I don't know, it just seemed better because people watching, I don't know.
Well, we've all learned something new today.
There was something else to it, but I can't remember why it was better.
That's not a scene that particularly sticks out to me. You going a bit red, are you okay?
Wait.
Do you still think the books are unoriginal?
What was this a retelling of?
Hades and Persephone. Do you want me to tell you the myth of Hades and Persephone again?
I think you've already told me.
I have.
It is original though, because it's not straight, you know.
No.
And it's blending all these different things together.
There's a lot of Old English, well, Old British law in ACOTAR because, as we know from the map, it's the UK.
Yeah, I would say it's original. More original, the more it keeps changing, you know?
So you're not saying it's unoriginal anymore then?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's good. Do you have anything to add? Is there anything else you want to talk about that happened?
Is there anything else I've mentioned that I haven't mentioned?
So she's in spring and Ianthe's there and she's a bitch. And then Tamlin is a dick. And then she goes to the night court and Rhys is really sexy and he makes her right. Rhys is the most sexy high.
It still annoys me every time, you know, she's taken somewhere and then there's like, oh, there's everything you need at a click of a finger.
Like what?
Oh, here's all the clothes that you would ever need to wear and here's all the things to wash your body with and oh, there you go.
But it's a fantasy world, she can't just get to
it's just like,
Tesco.
oh, of course, it's here already.
Plus it's like a palace. Can you imagine going to a palace and there being no like
time,
soap?
I guess. It does save time.
It's magic. That is such a weird nitpicky thing.
But magic
really
isn't
funny about.
ever like, magic's not explained, is it?
Well, it's the individual powers, and there is a lot that goes into this world.
The
like
elemental powers and stuff.
Enchanted houses and stuff that you haven't even seen yet, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Any theories for the next book? Like what
I
the
presume,
end goal
obviously,
is?
it's going to start with a revenge on Tamlin being a mole. Maybe he's going to be wise to it. Obviously, the sisters are going to go through hell, finding out what they are.
Anything you're particularly excited to see in the next book?
There is the severing of the bond between Rhys and Feyre, isn't there? That happened. But there's still the other thing keeping them together.
Yeah, the mating bond.
So that's nothing to worry about. I was just trying to think of what Rhys will be like in the next one.
I think what we're really going to see from the next one is the difference between Rhys and Tamlin
and
in
how
that
he deals with being separated.
Yeah, and
interesting.
How they cope, because I was scared when I read a cut of Mist and Fury and they get separated at the end and I'm like, how's she gonna get out?
It does do a good job of getting you attached to them. Yeah.
So your rating was 4 stars, but it should have been 5.
Yeah.
So it's a 5-star rating.
Yeah. It probably would be 5 star if I reread it because it would be less jarring. Because on and off Reddit, and then like things are like, oh great, now Reese is a good person, and oh.
You need to actually like read a book, because you started off really strong with that. I think you started it pretty much straight after we finished the video for A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then you just stopped for a couple of months and then picked it up again, and then you read the last like 300 pages in a 24-hour read.
Because I enjoyed it.
Because you don't like to do anything that brings me joy.
It's the I get excited for the intro, and then like things tend to like slow down.
The pacing slows,
and then it starts to get quicker. And
I like the slow pacing. That's when the character development happens.
I suppose, yeah.
Okay, so I think that just about wraps us up here. Down in the comments, like last time, please leave us any questions that you would like Curtis to answer, specifically regarding A Court of Wings and Ruin. Which are you going to start that soon, because it's long?
Yeah.
Okay. It's probably good that you haven't started it yet, actually, because we needed to make this video.
Yeah, and they might come across.
Yeah, difficult when you're reading books in the same series. That's it from us today, guys.
Yes, I'm sorry it wasn't
it wasn't as entertaining.
It wasn't
he wasn't as rude this time.
I wasn't like, I didn't have like really fleshed out things.
You need to make notes.
Yes, and I sort of make mental notes as I go along and then tell you them sometimes.
But it's been a long process.
Any of those anyway.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and
subscribe if you want to.
If you head to my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter.
And a discount code.
No! If you'd like to follow me on any of those. No. Not again. You'll also find a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Instagram for that, and
a 10% discount code.
So not 20% like you said last time. But that's it from us today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're ready to go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.